Tip number 165 from the book 501 Contractor Tips. Long distance or short drive. What is it going to be to the office? This is something you've got to consider. And when I originally wrote the book, I want to say gas prices might have been $1.75. They might have been $2.75. Now we're looking at $4 gas, and I would imagine in another 2 or 3 years we're going to be looking at $5 gas. And we could be looking at even $6, $7, $8 gas. This tip right here is going to be something that you're already going to be considering as these gas prices increase. But this was something that a lot of contractors, when I worked in the 1970s, 80s, and even into the 90s, it wasn't a big deal. They could have an office 40 miles from their house. They didn't care. They would just drive there. They got the office because it was cheaper. You know, the farther you are away from the larger cities, the higher prices, you're going to be able to get land cheaper, buildings cheaper, stuff like that. It might be feasible for you to actually have an office in these areas. But if you're spending $1,000 a month in gas to drive from your house to your business, and your office lease is $1,000 a month, that's $2,000 a month. Now, if you could rent a place closer to your house for $1,500 a month, and you're going to spend $200 in gas, well, now you can see where that's a total of $1,700 versus $2,000, plus the frustration, the time it's going to take for you to drive back and forth to your office. Now, I'm not suggesting this is always going to be the case, but it is definitely something that you need to consider. It is the most important thing you need to consider. You know, and again, this goes back to the previous one on should you buy or should you lease. If you can buy something farther away, but the distance that you're basically going to be traveling, you're going to be, instead of renting, you're going to be owning. This might be a serious consideration. It might be worth it to pay $2,000 a month, $1,000 in gas, $1,000 in rent or to your mortgage, versus the $1,700 you would pay, the $1,500 for rent, and the $200 for gas in the town or near the town. And I actually know some of the smartest contractors I ever worked for. There was 2 of them, and these guys actually lived probably, I want to say, 30 miles from their office. But that's not the kicker here. It used to take them at least, because this was a high traffic area here. It was the freeway. The only way you could get to their office from their homes was to get on this one freeway, and it was heavily congested. It could take you hours to get to work. So it wasn't just the gas anymore. It was the time it would actually take you to get there. But they made a good move because they moved into an office. They bought the office in a town that was growing. So the whole area started growing. I think they were in it for about 20 years. Then this town really grew a lot in 20 years. They really scored doing this. So in the last video, I said you're going to have to really give this a lot of thought. This is just something else you're going to need to think about. There are a lot of things that can make something worthwhile, or absolutely not. You're not going to do it. So consider the distance that you're going to have to drive. This is one thing. I've said this before about going to work. You know, if you're going to live in a place, which is actually what I did. Actually, one time I lived in a place where you could afford to buy a house. It was a lot cheaper. But I had to drive 40 to 60 miles each way to work because there was more money in these other towns. If this is something you're doing again, with the gas prices like they are today. This wasn't the case when I was working in the, like I said, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It wasn't a big deal. You know, I think it used to cost me $15, $20 a week to drive all over the place. Well, it's not that way anymore. You're talking hundreds of dollars. So, and again, this is something, like I said, most contractors are already familiar with. It doesn't take much to realize, you know, how much it costs to drive long distances today, because you're putting the money in, you're seeing it go, hey, the credit card's coming in, and you're not paying $200 a month for gas anymore. Some of these guys might be paying $800-900. It's a big chunk coming out. So it's already something that you're familiar with. It's going to be something that most contractors are really going to be familiar with in the future as prices rise. So, but like I said, the tip in here was something to consider when gas prices weren't that much. So anyway, that's it. Don't need to beat a dead horse here. Off to the next video.